Good evening. Welcome to City Council work session. It's Tuesday, April Fool's Day at 5:30 p.m. We're leaving for a trip in about 20 minutes. We'll be flying around the world. Or something. Maybe we won't last that long. Who knows? Everybody's here. Don't need to call the roll. Would like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Would someone like to lead us in that?
I'll do it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would anyone like to offer an invocation or give an inspirational thought?
I can do that, Mayor.
Okay.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for this beautiful day, for the opportunity we have to be here. We're thankful for the moisture that has fallen, and pray that we can continue to get the required amount we need for summer. We're thankful for this beautiful city and this place to live, and for the residents that live here. We're thankful for them and their dedication to being part of our city and for their service. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to serve. Help us to make good decisions, to be alert and attentive, that we may make decisions that are best for the community. These things we pray for at this time in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Lynn. Appreciate you. We have a lot of business coming up in the regular council meeting, and we'd like to take a chance to go through a lot of this stuff, especially since there are 16 things on it. We did away with a couple, didn't we? Okay. Why don't we go through those? And then if there are any other things that you'd just like to talk about in this meeting, we can do so, even though we can't take action on anything that's not been notified or noticed as well. So we don't need to worry about the first 2-3 items. Surplus property. Do we need to go over anything? Is everybody good?
I was curious about all the tools. Why are we surplusing all those tools?
So those are evidence.
Oh, okay.
And we're surplusing them because that we now no longer need to hold on to them, and they're just taking up space. And so
I assumed it was coming out of the shops for some reason.
No, these are not city tools. These are tools that were confiscated as part of evidence.
Okay.
Okay. I think the employee of the month, we'll discuss him as usual. Is John going to be here to go over that? Okay. John
Hepworth, and then
okay,
Jason's
John
going to read.
Who's going to go? You're going to do it? Okay. And then Chamber of Commerce, you say they're going to be a little late tonight?
Yeah, they said.
Did you talk to Jim or
Chris?
Is Chris filling in tonight?
Yeah, he's filling in tonight. So he said he'll be here a little bit after 7:30.
Okay. All right. Just so you know, I had a great interview with Cale Smith. He's a good guy. You know, I ran into him, I think, over a year ago. Might have been almost 2 years ago, up on the mountain. And he introduced himself, started talking. He says, you know, I moved here because I love this park. I love that I can go up in the mountains. I love all this stuff. And so I moved my family here. And every time I see him, he reminds me that. Real positive guy. Isn't he the one that put together the
Bike race?
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun to watch that take place. not sure I want to do anything like that again. It hurts too hard to bounce, you know. Let's see. Resolutions. The Utah County municipal elections. I don't want to get started, so you better cover for me on this one.
So, Mayor and Council, there's 2 items on here that are being proposed by Utah County. The first one is Resolution 0401, and that is our normal every other year, every municipal cycle, we go through this for the county to take care of our voting needs. That was done by the state legislature some years ago and has kind of just continued on with that. We don't do our own elections, although we do provide them a space, and we actually have some folks here in town, and some of them are our employees that work as poll workers, but they don't work for us. They work for the county. But the first resolution, 0401, is just that exactly. It's nearly exact, but a little bit different than the agreement that we had 2 years ago. Brett and I have reviewed it, and Emily, and I think we're good with it. There's no, unless you have any concerns or questions, we would recommend that you approve that resolution. I would point out that it is significantly higher in cost. The cost this year for doing both a primary and a general election is up about 35% from what it was just 2 years ago for the election that we did 2 years ago. So it is a significant increase. And I think that bears on the thing coming up down towards the bottom of that. That's a discussion of possible action.
So did they say why? What was due to the increase, or it was just let's just increase?
There's 2 things. One is that our number of voters has gone up.
Okay.
But also the cost is going up from $2.25 per registered voter to $2.75, so about 50 cents per voter, and they're seeing similar cost increases like everybody else is in everything from staffing to, they have to have moving companies come and move all the equipment in for an election and then move it out when it's done, and so I'm sure that's a big part of it. But still, 35% is a significant hit.
I don't think it really addresses the new assignment that they've given to our people to do this, though.
As far as the other item, the discussion of possible action down below. So yeah, we can. I'll move right to that one. So again, we would recommend approval of item number 70401, going down to the discussion of possible action, item number 14. If you've had a chance to read it, the county clerk, Aaron Davidson, has sent this out. This is not coming from the county commissioners. It's not coming from anyone other than Aaron Davidson, who is the county clerk that's over elections. And he's asking for help to be able to do those elections that they're now charging us more money for. So our recommendation in short, basically what they want to do is have a 2-week window where people can come and bring their early voting ballots to a location that the city would designate, and basically check their ID and make sure that their ID is matching the last 4 of their, I don't remember, driver's license, I think is what it is. I think that what they're proposing, I know that it puts a huge burden on city staff that would actually have to have 2 or 3 poll workers to do this for a full 2-week period from whenever the polls would be opened.
But they're not paid as poll.
But they're not paid by. They're paid by. They would in Aaron Davidson's recommendation or request, they would be paid by us rather than by the county.
Do they not do I always volunteered growing up as a poll worker.
They do
every election, and so where are the volunteers?
They do, but the problem with it is to get 3 volunteers for a 2-week period from 8 to 5 or 8 to 8 or whatever they have it open during that 2-week period. Mm-hmm. I think that's the problem that we've got, is that it just is that they're trying to rely on us for that staff, and we honestly and truthfully do not have staff to be able to cover that bandwidth. There's no way.
Do you know what other cities are doing with this? I mean, we can't be the only city looking at it.
I can tell you from our city manager's discussions that no other city that I'm aware of is looking at doing this. Again, because of the increased cost. There's some other things that I think are legal here that we're not even sure it's legal. We're not even sure that it's something that we should be doing first of all, it's not in the contract in item number 7 up above. It would need to be in there. Also, the way that they have described it, there would be some potential custody issues of the ballots themselves. No locked drop boxes, putting them in a bag, and so I think that there's some real concern with
For what?
what they,
Total people that actually go.
yeah, security cameras that we don't have. I mean, this would be a gargantuan effort to be able to do item number 14 the way it's proposed.
Well,
We as staff and as legal counsel are recommending that we do not do that.
we
just-
don't even have Friday afternoons covered in our
Staffing,
office.
right.
How many people from Santaquin voted in the last election? Not enough to justify
It was
this.
a couple thousand.
I want to say it was around 3,000 or 4,000,
Yeah,
so about half.
Not enough to
pretty
justify
significant once they
3
tallied
full-time
it all
people
up.
for 2
You're
weeks.
feeling really good if you can get
Yeah,
30%
for a
participation.
local election, pretty good.
Yeah.
Claiming there's 86.
And I'm going off of the presidential election, so the last municipal election, I'd have to look that up. But we have roughly about,
Election.
we have roughly about,
30%.
yeah, we have roughly about 8,000 plus or minus registered voters. No, all of those obviously don't vote. And
8,674.
great, thank you. So I knew it was 8,000 plus.
Did anybody, when you were in that meeting with the other administrators, did they discuss the implications of what it would be to amass all that time, take on that responsibility, have all that coverage?
Yeah,
I
they,
just
they
can't
have
imagine.
they have some of the same concerns that we have. Not having enough staffing to do it, not having the bandwidth, the potential custody issues, the potential that, you know, even if it was going to be done, it would have to be included in number 70401 that we're considering tonight, and it's not included in there. And so, again, this is coming from the county clerk, and our recommendation is that we don't do it.
What's the motive for this? Like, is
Well,
this like to try new thing, or they want to cut costs and?
So the indication is that there were some problems with the last election, and they're hoping that this would help to, I can't remember what the term of it is,
Well, there was the
uncured ballots.
Oh,
But
But
they
the
still
uncured-
will have the mail-in ballots.
The uncured
gonna
ballots
change.
were like 1%. It was very small, although I think they did get some concern expressed to the county from the state lieutenant governor's office because of those issues.
yeah.
And so that's the indicated impetus of this in the email. But I think there's other motives that are not written. How's that?
That doesn't necessarily fix the problem either, does it?
And that's the whole point that our city managers have had the same discussion. Brett and I have the same discussion. How do we know that by doing what he's proposing, it's
There's no guarantee.
there's no guarantee that it's going to solve the problem?
And it costs, that's a no-brainer to me.
It's going to cost us a lot, but you throw that across every city in our county,
yeah,
that's major.
we're a
Right.
small city.
Yeah. I don't know.
I've been voting by mail-in for some years, so I don't know the answer to this. Do we have voting machines in town, an actual machine where you can vote?
There will be during the primary and the general, but not the only way to do
Here?
by mail
Just
if you
for
don't
that
put a
one
stamp
day.
on it is to put it in the drop box in front of the public safety
Yeah.
building. Yes.
Would it save money if we encouraged everybody to vote in the machine rather than using their mail-in ballots?
No.
I doubt it.
Probably
One-
be
one of the-
worse in the end.
They're going to mail the ballots anyway.
Right. One of the concerns that is out there, whether you agree with it or not, and this was the whole state legislation that was done this year with voting, I think it was HB 300, if I remember correctly, was exactly like you said. Mail-in voting is very much a convenience.
Yes, it
And we're
is.
concerned, the majority of folks that I spoke with were concerned that if we take away mail-in voting, which is going to change in 2029, so we've got 4 years until we get there, 4.5 years, but the way that mail-in voting is going to be done in the future is different than it is now, and the concern is that it would cause people to not vote because it's not convenient. In fact, mail-in voting has been shown to increase voter turnout
Sure.
because people can fill it out in their living room or on their kitchen table and run it by the public safety building on their way to work or on the way to taking kids to school or whatever. So, yeah.
It is $275 per vote.
It is $275 up from $225. That's correct.
So I'm confused because I thought this memo says 4 days or any portion of the 4 days. It's your election. You can decide when to do it. So we don't have to commit to 2 weeks. And then once the poll worker stamps the envelope, the ballot is put in the ballot box at the voting location. Don't we already have a ballot box over at the safety building?
That's a different ballot box. We have a ballot box over there, but when they do elections here, there is a locked box on the table or with the equipment that
we can't use that one over there?
Again, unknown.
Yeah.
So the 2 weeks is coming from somebody else's interpretation of what it would look like. Even if it's 4 days, where are we going to find 3 people for 4 days at 10 hours a day, right? That just is something that I think is going to be beyond our bandwidth as far as staff, because the way that it's been described is that would be staff doing that, not poll workers. But they would also have to be designated poll workers by the county. So it's a little, quite frankly, in layman terms, a little loosey-goosey for me. I don't think that there's going to be, I believe there's going to be custody issues. I believe that there's going to be more problems with what's being proposed than what the problem is that's trying to be solved.
So the 2 weeks, early voting is the week before, so they're offering that you do it that week plus the week
Right.
of the actual election. So
That's for the 2 weeks.
they're encouraging that rather than just
Yeah.
here for a day.
They are encouraging it, or he is encouraging it. Yeah.
I honestly could see how this actually does help the curing issue, is that then you know that it's cured because it's stamped right then and there, so there's no risk. But if they want to give us money, maybe.
Well, they said that they might be able to get the staffers to do it, but then they would put the bill back on us on top of the $275 per voter. Emily sent me the registered voters last election 2 years ago for the municipal election was 8,018, and we were at 23%. 1,919 voters voted, so about 24%. So, again, purporting that it's going to solve the issue, I guess you can look at it one way or another. I think it's going to cause other issues with custody and other problems that are not being discussed.
Just seems like this is going to be one more way for people to claim that our elections are interfered with.
I agree.
Yeah.
So, especially with the name FastCast.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on number 7 or number 14?
Let's go back up to number 8.
Okay.
With that funding agreement.
Yeah, so number 8, Resolution 0402, is the actual funding agreement for the $20,000 grant that we received. I think we gave you notice in November, October last year, said, hey, we're getting some money. They're going to help us put the water element of the general plan together. This actually gives us the full $20,000 because they allowed us to count staff time and other resources that we will be using to put this together. So if you remember, the contract that we have with Hansenal and Luce is $16,500. This allows us to capture the full $20,000 by approving this agreement. It's largely like the agreements that we've had before with ARPA funding or COVID funding, that type of thing that we've gotten in the past coming from the state. Any questions on that?
No. Why don't we let's talk about the My Hometown agreement.
Okay.
You know, we've talked about different things. I know we did last time, and you've had a chance to read through that. It's been sent to you. There's a bunch of legalese in it, and our legal eagles have been beating it up as well. So, okay. I think before we jump into it, I'd like to just ask if you guys have impressions or questions as you've gone through it that you'd like to go over that we could hit right up front in this meeting.
I have questions.
Sure.
So we're not obligated to do background checks, but we're liable for the volunteers. What do we put the estimate of the cost for background checks on each volunteer that's proposed by the donor, which would be the church?
Yeah.
Mayor, if I may, I'd recommend you just have Jason address this. Is actually a concern that we've had and we've discussed earlier. So.
My reasoning is I think we're all very familiar with Boy Scouts of America and the scandal that happened with that. And what I view this is they're trying to take the liability that they held with Boy Scouts of America and avoid that whole issue here with volunteers in a community initiative. And I think we know from experience that there are serious liability concerns, and I don't want the city to be responsible for that, and I don't want us to have a significant economic burden for those background checks.
I think we all feel that way in reality, but the other reality is we're going to do this once in a year, and maybe increase it more often than that. It has so many good possibilities, and that certainly took our time up. You know, how much do we really have here, and how would we even enforce it or do it? How do you take a roll call, and obviously you probably do need to, hey, sign this paper, and in the fine print, you know, I'm not a pedophile or whatever is signed right on that paper. Something I don't know.
Well, I do think that if you're teaching children or with youth, I do think it's appropriate to get a background check. I mean, if you've looked into the Boy Scouts of America case, I don't want to slander anyone, but the reality is that certain religious organizations allowed people that showed up in their background checks to still serve with children that had a history of that. And so I think we definitely need to get background checks. If we're going to be liable, we definitely have to. The question is, what's the cost?
How do you do that, though?
So let me speak to that from a couple different levels. So just quickly, I don't know. Shannon would probably be more familiar with what the cost of a background check that we do is. I don't know what that is, so I can't give you a number there, but I can look into that. From a general standpoint, this was a question that I had as well because, Norm's directed me to kind of look into the risk management side of this, and that was the concern that I had. Is it felt like there's not really an adequate way to do background checks, and particularly since a lot of the volunteers, it even says in the agreement that the church is not obligated to give us names and information to even do those background checks
in advance.
In advance,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a tricky thing. I think there's a lot of language in here that is protection, which is fine, but it's hard for us on our end of the agreement here when there's a level of expectation and a risk that's being assumed that we're not able to really adequately address that risk. That's kind of, from my perspective, the hard thing. But to what you were just speaking about, and I can speak on this from more of a personal level, there is new recent state law that the church does need to do background checks for anybody who's serving in a calling that is working with children. I know that because I serve in an ecclesiastical role that had to do that for our particular ward. So I know that there are some things that are happening on that side of things.
That process that you spoke of is ongoing currently.
Correct. And
I don't
already
think it's fully
accomplished-
rolled out, though, right?
What's that?
I don't think that's fully rolled out.
It is where I'm at, and it is where he's at. So,
I know because I did it myself.
and I did it myself too. So,
I've done it too.
So
The background checks.
What's that?
Background checks?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's just barely new as of I'm talking last week is when I did it for
There's a state
people
website.
in our area. So I know the church is doing some things on their end a little bit more on that topic as well. But still, nonetheless, and I want to emphasize, and I appreciate, and I know others have expressed as well, that these folks are wanting to make this a My Hometown program. It's not a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints program, but it's My Hometown. But you need to remember this agreement that's for your consideration tonight is an agreement between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and Santaquin City. I know that, and I can appreciate the efforts there to make this more of a community-focused initiative and not a church or a private entity initiative. But just remember that this still is an agreement with the church, and so that is an important factor, because I'm sure that'll come up in other comments.
So if I may also, just for clarity, there's two types of activities that are spelled out in the agreement, okay? There's activities that are ongoing by the donor, which is the church, and there's an annual, plus or minus, activity that's a city event. So there's donor events and city events. The donor events take place in their buildings and are run by them, and they have the liability for that. Councilmember De Rosario. So that's just so you know, there's two different things going on and being discussed here, and that's the majority. That's going to be the English as a second language. That's going to be the sewing classes. That's going to be the piano playing classes. It's going to be doing anything else.
And if I can jump in, the city is not responsible to do background checks for the donor events, which are going to be the classes and stuff like that.
So on the city events, what we have imagined and what we've seen even on the video is yard cleaning, tree trimming, house painting, fence repairs, those types of things. And so with that, it's probably going to be hard to get a background check, because you might have a neighbor that comes out and says, hey, I want to help, when everybody else shows up, right? How are you going to do a background check? Now, background checks on that, because they're not necessarily working with children, may be a little bit different, right? And I used the example earlier with the mayor and with Brett and Jason. What about sandbag filling, right? 2 years ago, we had hundreds of people filling sandbags, hundreds of times, multiple days. We didn't do background checks on them, and they were still essentially volunteers for the city. So we're kind of unsure how that works or what that looks like moving forward. But just keep in mind that there's those two types of activities that the agreement spells out. Now, we could have a city event in a church building, but I doubt that would be. I think that would probably be an exception to the rule. And if we do, then we would be liable for instance, for any damage in the building, which in my mind would make it so that we don't have it in a church building, right? The last thing we want to do is have liability from volunteers and liability for a building that's not even the city's. So keep in mind that those are the two things that are going on in here, and the city's responsibility is only for city events, which at this point in time could be once, maybe twice a year. Big outdoor events that are going to be, again, fixing somebody's, they use the example of somebody fixing a roof or cutting down a tree or weeding a yard and hauling stuff off, right? So that's what we envision. It's untold at this point in time, because that's all we've considered. And I think it would be something that we would consider going forward, is making sure that the activities are appropriate and that we even have some level of training, provide safety glasses or gloves or hats or whatever, something of that nature as we go through these types of activities. So just, that's my 2 cents on making sure we understand who's responsible for what in this agreement.
And I think to add to that, and in talking with Brett, a lot of these contracts are going to be written for a worst case scenario. And in talking with Brett and then with our insurance company, the trust, yeah, they think in terms of worst case scenario. But ultimately, when I talked with the trust, they had relatively little concern about this, because the volunteers that would participate in my hometown would just be like any other volunteer for anything else in the city. It just may be at a larger scale. So obviously, in the memo that I wrote for you, there's things that they're going to point out, that are kind of obvious things that you want to take the extra step to make sure that people are trained, that no underage kids operating city machinery or things like that. But ultimately, I think it'll operate a lot as Norm indicated, some other volunteer things that when you think about it, don't go through some really comprehensive vetting process. Now, one thing I will say, and this is specific to a comment that was made last meeting, and I guess this is a good time to bring it up, is I know that there was a concern or a comment made about some of the people that the church would assign or call to these higher up positions, and if that should be open to people who aren't members of the church. From just a purely risk management standpoint, I think we want these people to be called or chosen by the church. One, because again, this is an agreement with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's not an agreement with somebody who's not affiliated with the church. This is directly affiliated with the church. Plus, I think the church, they're going to be very careful in who they choose to represent the church and who's going to work with this to make it a success. So there's going to be kind of a quasi-vetting process that they're going to do for a couple individuals to really help lead this out. If we get, if there's concerns about it feeling like, a non-member can't serve in a position for this My Hometown community initiative, then, this is really a church agreement that we have with them to help make this project work. So, like I say, from a risk management standpoint, I think it's good that the people that they choose to help lead on their end of things be somebody that they choose and that they're confident in representing their organization, and somebody that they're confident is going to be, not a risk liability.
One thing during this conversation, I found that lady that's over at under Mayor Kafusi, and I had sent you her name earlier. It's Tara Riddle.
Okay,
and
great.
So I had sent her just a quick note. Hey, what does Provo City do for the vetting of volunteers? How do you handle that? So, she's been very responsive whenever I've sent something. She may even send something while we're in this meeting tonight, and I'll just let you know what they say. The one thing that I glean from most of this is every city that's using it, and it seems to be working beyond their expectations. Places that needed help, especially in the older part of town, where a lot of time we get a lot of complaints about, and the city has to be the hard hand, when in fact something like this could really turn a corner for what we could do to beautify this place and even build better bonds and relationship with neighbors. And it's not meant to be church organized. It is meant to be a city with a church that's backing us to do it. And
neighbors helping neighbors.
Yeah. And one of the points you made last time, Brian, was what about the others? And in every case, we want to invite any other denomination to be a part of it, especially where it's representative of the city and any church, or no church at all. If they don't go to church and they just want to do it, what a great way to help. Now, if we can figure out this vetting process, I'm not sure. I would dare say probably most of them don't do anything because the sheer number that you get there. However, getting those numbers are very important for the cities. And the reason is when we apply for grants or when we try to do anything, if we can show numbers where, multiple hundreds of people show up to help, oh, that's a big deal.
Yeah, our mountain bike park is a perfect example of that. We had several thousand hours that we submitted when we got the grant for the mountain bike park, or for the skills park and the pavilion that we just put in last year. We had thousands of hours between Mayor and the folks that he has working with them, the high school group that came down and raked rocks and all that kind of stuff. So it really does benefit us and help us to that. Mayor, if I may, Council Mayor, we're not opposed to this. We're happy to do whatever you direct us to do. We just want to make sure that we're having a good discussion and we know what we're going into, and we can ease into it. We can go and visit with Mayor Kafusi's staff and say, hey, how did you do this? And what worked good here? What didn't work good there? It's just going to be it's really hard because it's completely unknown to us. Yeah. We've had the presentation and the ideas and the thoughts, and I believe it could be a fantastic thing for the community. It's just how do we do it, and how do we protect the city, and how do we do it right? That's really, I guess, our point.
Well, they've invited us to load up and go over and just see it, and I really think we ought to do that. I think they do it on Wednesday nights.
I don't know.
I think it is a Wednesday night. I'd have to check. Tara would know.
If staff want or council members want to go to that, we're happy to set something up. Absolutely.
We just go over and walk through the whole thing, see how it's going, get some questions answered.
I'd like to add my 2 cents if I can. It seems like when you're having conversations with people, everyday conversations, the things that don't get done, they expect the government to do.
Right.
And this looks like to me like an opportunity for us to participate without having to take on all the liability and all the expense. And I know we want to talk about the Boy Scouts and all the mistakes that happened with the Boy Scouts, but I was a Boy Scout growing up, and it had a tremendous impact on my life. And there was a lot of good that was done there. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we say we don't want to do this because there's some liability, I think this is worth the risk. Because you can't eliminate all risk, and you're not going to a background check's only going to eliminate the people who've been caught.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing that goes along with that is the league said, hey, we haven't had any problem with this. It's a good thing.
This looks like a tremendous opportunity, and I'm sure that if anybody's considering liability, it's the church. Because I'm sure they probably spend a lot of time because the church was a huge sponsor of the Boy Scouts and other things. I think they probably got these things worked out. I just think if we pass on this opportunity, we're missing out. And we're not, this would be a good chance to help our citizens where we can't do it otherwise or can't afford to do it. This looks like that opportunity that if we miss this. That's my opinion.
I like that.
And I would just say, and I kind of had a brain cramp earlier, I think this agreement puts a lot of the liability on the city. I completely agree with what your comments are, but I guess what I wanted to try and say earlier is this won't work without the church. This is a proposal brought to us by the church, but if this gets to a point where it feels like we need non-members of the church to be able to help run this and make it work, I don't think it's going to work. I think it needs to be the church. This is an agreement with the church, and if that's a breaking point, then we may as well do this ourselves. But I don't think we can do this ourselves. Again, we need the church. We need their ability to gather volunteers and get sheer number of people to really make any of these projects work. But I appreciate the comment made because, yeah, we're bringing to your attention, and I agree with Norm. I'm pretty indifferent on this. We'll work at whatever direction you give us. But, yeah, the risk very likely will be worth it because of the good that this could do. But I just want to emphasize that this is an agreement with the church, and I think it doesn't work without the church. I don't think this is something we could do internally as staff. We need the church in order to make this happen.
I think their expertise in what they're doing, this isn't, hey, you're the first ones. We're the first ones in a smaller rural setting, when in fact all the rest have been in quite large cities. And, we have the same kind of people. We have the same kind of issues. And,
I think we
that
take on those.
expertise is great.
I apologize, Mayor, for cutting you off.
No.
I just wanted to add, I think we take on those same risks with our recreation program. But the services that it provides is worth that risk. And we do what we can to stop it, but there is no catch-all. So,
do we conduct background checks for city employees?
Yes, all city employees
so
have
people that are doing community services do have background checks.
And like, for instance, for coaches of programs, their background checks done on coaches. But for sandbagging efforts or for trail efforts,
I get that point. I'm like, I don't think we need to be so. There's a level of risk.
Right.
I just if we don't have classes on city property and it's just in church buildings, then that reduces basically all of the reasonable cases where you would do a background check
for the donor events. That's correct. For the city events, again, if it's a big city cleanup or something like that, it's going to fall under a similar situation like the sandbagging, where we're just out helping neighbors and neighbors. You said it. Neighbors serving helping neighbors.
But when they talked about like the piano and the sewing,
that's all donor.
That would
programs.
be donor.
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't deal with any of those. And in fact, Tara had told me the only real money other than her time, which they're doing it on a much bigger level than we are, and she's just a part-time employee for the city that does it. But she said, really, all we do are buy the treats for the major events, not even the events of the week.
The contract actually says that the donor would provide the goodies for even the big events.
Nice.
So they in fact, if I remember right, it says that we have to use those for those purposes. We can't use them for other purposes without their permission. In other words, we can't just bring them back to City Hall if there's a box of candy bars left over or granola bars left over. We can't just bring them back to City Hall. We have to store them and use them again for a purpose that's under the agreement.
You mean it doesn't go to the priests on Sundays?
No.
You know?
It's
The
mostly
bishop's office?
donuts.
No.
That's where all the treats end up going. I love that.
Okay, any other things? We can move on.
Good discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And just so you know, the Burtons will be here tonight, so any questions that you may have, you may want to bring up with them. They would like to participate and especially answer any questions that we might have. And so I'll invite them to come up as we start this discussion. Okay?
Absolutely.
And you know, they may want to even make comment from the last time meeting. I don't know. If they
Okay.
want to do that, that's fine. Good. Okay,
I'll take
city
the first
utility
one, you should take
services,
the
the
other two.
amendment.
Yeah. So Mayor and Council, excuse me. Ordinance 0401 is an amendment to our utility services, city utility services. We've had some discussion on this over the last little while, and this is just cleaning up an ordinance to make it so that we have some more, we're in line with what the council's desires are and the mayor's desire is to have utility service connections and that kind of thing. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Has this been prompted by a particular issue or just a refinement?
Yes and no, both. It has been prompted by a particular issue,
Okay.
a potential particular issue. How's that? It's not an issue, but it could be.
This is a good direction to go because of the good that it does in ensuring that we don't have to deliver water too far away from our system and be responsible for it.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. This strengthens our position as a city in our water system and our sewer system. We haven't specifically talked about the sewer, but as we were going through this, we felt like that would be something that would be helpful as well.
If my lot split was part of the problem, you're too late because they've already done a hot tap.
I promise it's not.
No.
I promise it's not.
Mostly that. And the deferral agreement. that went
We
with
can
it.
still stop that.
That's the event that calls for it.
No. Asphalt reduction. I hate that.
I don't think this needed an approval by the DRC, but I'm just concerned that has some other eyes, like the fire chief or somebody, looked at this and is reducing the asphalt going to cause us a problem?
So this is not an arbitrary proposal to reduce the asphalt width. This is in line with state code. We've changed our code to be in line with state code, but sometimes when we make changes, there's other areas that we didn't catch in the original amendment. So the asphalt width, regardless of what anybody within the city, including public safety, says, this is something that we're bound by from state code. And then changing the land use authority to planning commission, again, city council's been taken kind of out of the development review or subdivision process. So this is really a formality to just clean up an area that wasn't cleaned up when the other amendment went through.
Regardless of that, we have discussed it with all directors, and John Lundell, our city engineer, and Jason Calloway, our public works director, are aware of it and understand. Fire chief is also, again, we're not making any smaller roads. It's just cleaning up our code, but we have discussed it with them so that they're aware of it.
Thank you. That's why I mentioned DRC, because it's those players that are there. So.
Yep.
Same ones, but they've all had their input.
Good.
Jason, can you help explain this? I apologize. I didn't rewatch the planning commission. But so this is saying that if there's currently no road, we're allowing them to do a smaller road initially, but dedicate the full width to the city so that they finish the full road. What is the case?
So this specific the part of the code that I am showing on the screen right now actually has to do with what's called a half plus 10, or a half plus is what we call it. So in our code and in state code, we can't require a developer. Let's say that there's two properties, okay? Property A and property B both have development potential. We cannot require property owner B to do the entire width of the road because property owner A will benefit from it, and it's being put on the back of one property owner instead of both of them. So what we allow is we allow for what's called a half plus, or a half plus 10 in this case, to be able to build more than just one lane. They have to build 10 feet more than half of the road. So our roadway width right now is 58 feet. They have to build half of that plus 10 feet all on their property B, and then property owner A would get some benefit from that, but still has to do storm drain, curb and gutter, et cetera, on their property when they develop. So that's what's happening here. We can't require a developer to do that. It's called a taking, and it's illegal in the state of Utah. We can require them to give us what we need for, say, a fire engine. This is the 26 feet that we're talking about here, but we can't require them. Now, if property A has already developed and there's no road there, then we can require that property B owner to put the entirety of the road to the back of the curb and gutter, storm drain, et cetera, on their property, because the other property doesn't have a potential. Let's say there's a big fruit storage building right there. They're never going to build a road, and so that's when we can require that, and it's not a taking. Is that
okay? Yeah.
clear?
So we're not reducing the width of road sizes, but we're just reducing the initial development requirement in certain cases.
That's right. That's right.
There may be other times when you do that too.
Yeah.
If it was planned to be a road in the future and yet they needed use of it, but they could get by with just a half plus 10.
Okay.
Or you could even make an agreement to where they would pay for that other side, but could be recouped once that other came in. Or we could work with them and pay that off and then recoup those costs. I think
That's correct. Yeah. If we said, hey, we want that road on property A, or if we want it all on property B, we can require this 26 feet from them of asphalt, and then we would have to pay for the remainder of it.
Oh, okay. So, but most likelihood, the city is not going to be foot with a bill.
Only time we're going to do that is when it's really a necessity. So up by where you're at, we paid for that road to go through along the Furnace Road at Center Street, or Canyon Road and Highland Drive. We paid for that road to go through there because we wanted and needed that circulation to not have to put all the burden on one road.
But that road still needs to be widened, right?
It does. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's all on us. That's a perfect example of, we got the developer to do this because that's what we could require of them. The other portion of it is ours. Absolutely.
And another example when the city is upsizing. If the size of either utilities or the road itself needs to be a certain width that's above and beyond what they would be, needing for their development, that's on the city. And that's why sometimes we'll enter in those reimbursement agreements is they will build the road, but they'll build it at a larger size, and we'll reimburse them
for a portion,
the extra upsizing that we need for our community purposes and connectivity and all that good stuff. But good
that
question.
Makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, great. We ready to move on? Main Street commercial area, we talked about changing the reduction on that. That was brought before the zoning commission. They made a recommendation, but do you want to go over that?
This is basically fulfilling a strategy which the council did recently see and talk about in the general plan amendment, which would have happened a month or two ago. But this is basically, this worked last year for our reporting purposes, where we reduced the minimum square footage for units in the Main Street residential zone. All this is doing is really adding the Main Street commercial to those reduced unit sizes as well. So we'll probably do something similar as well next year with the other district in that zone, which is the Central Business District. So the Planning Commission, I will say, since it's up there, and we were moving forward with this proposed amendment to fulfill the moderate income housing requirement before the topic of, if you remember last time, we had an individual here named Lonnie Martinez and his desire to do a duplex on his property. This happens to be the exact same area that he's referring to. So we're not touching that right now. This is just pertaining to the moderate income housing element that we're doing. But that language that you see in paragraph I is actually something that's being discussed and talked about right now as well. So this is not concerning that right now. It just happens to be in the same area. That'll come separately when the Planning Commission is ready to make a recommendation there. And we've held a public hearing. So this is really just adding Main Street commercial to the ability to have the reduced unit sizes.
I think one good note there was the citizen came in, he pleaded his case, asked for, would you consider it? We then made a decision, moved on to P&Z, and this is the recommendation. So
This is not the recommendation. That'll come later. This is just the moderate income housing, but it will actually be this exact same section of code that
But
will
that's why
change
it
should something
wins.
else go. Yes.
No, it's not why it went. This is before you today because of the moderate income housing strategy that we have. It just happens to be the same section of code that Lonnie Martinez brought up last meeting that is going to be the exact same language that we'll be looking at when we're considering Lonnie Martinez's request. So
I'm still reading that other.
It's not for his purposes. That's what we're getting at right here. This is for moderate income housing purposes. His purposes will come at a different time because that was not noticed when it was there before. He just barely made his case to the Planning Commission when this was being passed for moderate
this
income.
will make it crystal clear for you. This all used to be one paragraph. It's been switched to two, paragraph I and paragraph II, because the one talks specifically about MSR. II is now including MSC, and we wanted to just do that. But it just happens that paragraph I is there because it's being split from that other paragraph. That'll be addressed later with Lonnie Martinez's proposal. This is strictly just related to paragraph II, which is adding MSC to the language that talks about reduced unit size.
God, I read
Sorry for the
that
confusion.
thinking about him the whole time.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to clarify that. It's Lonnie Martinez is not being talked about. That situation's not being talked about.
In here,
There was
right
some-
now, today.
I had
There
convinced
was
myself. that's
there was a
what it
little
was.
confusion in planning commission.
Yeah,
So
well,
Paragraph I.
You're not alone.
What he
understand.
him, but that's not the reason why we did it.
Okay,
It doesn't
so
benefit
let's-
him yet,
let's
but it
go
will
on
be
to
discussed in the
bucking
future to
shoots.
benefit him.
That money's already been appropriated, budgeted,
Yep.
set aside, stamped, approved, ready to go.
Yep. Questions on the bucking chutes?
Same number of bucking shoots that
This will actually increase our ability to have more bucking chutes. There's 3 of them right now that don't function very well. So this will actually give us new bucking chutes and will allow us to bring the cattle in from the back in multiple locations. So
It's a bull.
it's a bull. Sorry, they still call it cattle.
Bovine.
Anyway, this will allow us to have much better and newer equipment at the rodeo grounds. It's going to be helpful for staff, for the rodeo club, the roping club, and the folks that provide our livestock for us, cattle.
Okay. We skipped 14, and we're just going to talk about the CDRA for a minute.
So
Rocky Mountain Power, you guys all read that, right?
Yep. So items number 15 and 16 are both ratification. We got a head nod from the council early on because we needed to get these things done and get them signed and get them paid for, at least on number 15, so that we can get the finished Rocky Mountain Power out there. This basically takes the power from the front of the subdivision, the primary power, and puts it in the back so that we can service all of the lots. And so this is always been anticipated. We've got the revenue for it, and we're ready to go. So that's a ratification on that one. The other one is just a change in fence style specific to the CC Callaway property, which is lots 4 and 5. That the building's going up vertically right now, and this will allow him to just put a different style of fence in there that is what he desires. I think it's going to be great. I think it's probably going to look better and have more longevity than, say, a vinyl coated chain link fence. So
Yeah, so that just added the composite molded option.
yes, it does. It looks like
I had
stone.
to go look up the original
Uh-huh.
to find out what
It-
the difference was.
It looks like stone. In fact, I think I got it in here. I can show it to you. See. Oh, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one.
If they're blue, they're links.
I didn't know that.
Why did I do that?
Life-saving, huh?
I need to go to the end. That's what I'm doing.
It's the same that's what's along Highland Drive, I believe. That stone.
It looks like it, but it's composite.
Okay.
It's not stone.
So
Yep.
it's-
It has a rock or a
Okay.
stone look to it, but it's made out of composite. It's a polyethylene composite.
Probably easier to clean off.
Probably is easier
when there's
when there's
vandalism.
graffiti on it.
Yep. Yes, the other one
Yeah.
not so easy.
Happy to answer any questions that you have on any of those, gentlemen.
Okay. Any thoughts or anything you want to bring up?
I'd like to bring up something that's completely unrelated, if I may. Since our Santaquin cheer coach is here, we had a cheer competition in St. George on Saturday, and competing against other teams where they have to try out and they get to practice more. We had 2 teams that placed first and second at that
Really?
competition.
Wow. What ages?
Well, I just did. So why don't you come up to the microphone?
Why
and answer some
wasn't it the
questions?
coach? Why was it not the coach? They fire coaches that they don't win enough.
Yes, they do.
What ages?
Our junior high team and they're basically middle school team, so like 5th, 6th, and 7th grade team. So it was good. It was fun. The girls did good and it's fun.
We've got some trophies and some banners to hang in the rec building now.
Awesome.
You know, we have some incredible things that are going on in the rec department. That if you talk to Shauna Joe and you bring up the archery, oh my heck! I'm trying to find all my old bows and just go shoot with these guys. They're giving out scholarships. I'm sure these girls are looking at it the same way with their cheer.
Well, this is the thing I'm most proud about.
Could we get you to come up to the
You need to
microphone and
come up
state
so
your
you're
name,
on public
please?
record.
I'm not coming again.
That's
No,
Council
you're
Member
not
Keel.
Travis.
I usually am coaching Tuesday night, so I can't come, but it's spring break, so we don't have any classes. That's the only reason I'm here.
Lacey Keel.
Lacey Kill.
There you go.
Thanks. Thanks, Norm.
Where do you live? I'm just waiting.
In Payson. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, the thing I'm most proud about is we had 13 girls try out between Salem High School and Payson High School's cheer teams, and we had 10 make it. We had the 1 try out in Salem and make it, and then we had 11 try out for Payson High School's team, and they took 9. So to me, that's my goal. So that's
awesome.
pretty impressive. So of the 10 sophomores that made the team, 9 of them are from Santaquin cheer.
Wow. And you know what? The policeman over there, he is a sucker. I mean, I parked illegally and he let me get away with it the other day.
That was Officer Keel, not Council Member.
You know what? That's really neat.
It's good. It's a good program. The kids it's good. So we're excited. We have 97 students this year. So hopefully
Oh my goodness.
we'll move forward from there. But
Give credit where credit is due. Only half of our team is here. Our other Lacey, who does the
yeah,
tumbling
Lacey
portion,
Profsgard that does the
she
tumbling portion.
contributes a ton.
She who's basically started it, hired me. She freaking kills it. So tumbling program's growing. In fact, that's my only complaint, Councilman, is there's not enough room and not enough time. Can I have more time in the rec building?
I'll make
No.
a motion.
Really, the hard part is I'm not kidding. I have girls that come and take tumbling for me, but because we don't have time to put them in another tumbling class, they're going other places. Like I have in my junior high cheer tumbling class, I have 20 students, and really, we should only have 10. Does that make sense? The building's just not big enough. So, I'm excited about the changes, but you build it, they will come. Just kidding. But it's good. Do you have any questions, or is that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great
No.
job. Thank you.
That's Council Member Keel, please.
Can
It's gonna be a
Just
long
in more
night.
trouble.
Did you get any brownie points out of that?
Nope, none.
Oh, we're terrible.
Do we have a report on the Miss Santaquin contest?
Oh, you know what? There were 3 of us over there the other night. Yeah. And
Good. When was that?
Miss Pine, who was our second attendant last time, is our second attendant this time. The new queen,
Hone. No.
Hone. Yeah, no,
Riley?
Brooklyn home?
Two Hone sisters.
There are two Hones. Riley and another one.
Yeah,
Riley, I think, was the first attendant.
I can't remember the
Kelsey?
name either.
I do not remember those names. I've even
Looked it up 3
forgot
times.
Mrs.
I'm so bad with names.
Keel's name. Who knows?
Peyton Hone and
Peyton. That was it.
Hone and
Peyton and Riley.
Yeah. But it was absolutely neat the way the whole thing went.
Could we invite them to our next council
We
meeting?
usually do.
Well, I'm hoping that they would have been here, but
Yeah,
we
they
ought to
usually
do
come.
that.
Okay.
Let's put that on and make sure they come. There was one other little discussion we had with that, and I don't know how big of a deal that was, but Jeff and I kind of ran into each other afterwards, and we thought, how come we are at X amount and have been for 5 or 6 years on the scholarship? Why have we not increased it a little bit? I know we don't have the budget, but
Sure
can we
do.
squeeze that?
It just takes more money is
we
all it
just do
does. So,
Yeah.
We can do anything. We just
put it in
can't
the
do
budget.
everything.
bingo. Almost anything, not everything.
I would really like to
Fun if you want
think about
sponsors.
that.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
just- we never discussed it, I know, in our budget sessions, and I just think that would be such a surprise to these young ladies, and there were a lot of young ladies. I'll tell you what, when a young lady has enough confidence that she is putting in
Yeah.
for the Queen, for Miss Santaquin, and she gets up and welds,
Yeah.
That was
I
awesome.
just went, you know what? That's as cool as singing or maybe not tumbling.
Really?
I
Yeah, that
won't
was
say
awesome.
anything about that, but I got to tell you that was kind of fun. You know, it was different.
You know what? Let me add to that, Mayor, because when I got to interview those ladies the week before, and I asked her because in her portfolio it says she plays 3 different types of guitars. And so I asked her, why are you choosing to weld when you play the guitar? Seems like that would be a better talent to me. And she said, just what you said. I want to be different. I want to be up there and do a talent that no one else is going to do.
Oh, it was.
And she did a great job. She did.
I thought it was kind of fun. The welding teacher was sitting right in front of me,
He had to come and help for fire purposes.
and I'll tell you what, it was fun feedback, and it was fun to see what they did.
Well-
You know, I was amazed last time when Chloe did ballet, and I thought, well, this ought to be exciting. And I wonder how. And oh my goodness,
She's good.
I thought I was watching the Nutcracker. She was absolutely
I think
incredible.
she actually was in that.
These other girls that perform.
So will they be on the agenda then next time for to be?
We'll do our best.
Okay.
I don't have purview over that, but I'm sure that we can talk to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, Mayor, I don't want the
No,
letter
it's not
that
it.
was here from Mark. I don't know if now's an appropriate time. I just wanted to say I'm pretty supportive of that. I know I don't think that we've done anything wrong. I just think that it would be more transparent to have more notices, or like everyone I talk to is like, I don't know, I didn't know about that. And I'm talking to a lot of business owners and they're like, what? And I think it would just also be just beneficial to just get more interest, or create more demand, especially as a seller. We want more demand. It doesn't mean that we can still be choosy about who we sell to. Like, just because someone gives a better financial offer doesn't mean you have to accept it, but it would give us, I think there's a lot of benefit. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, and
I don't know if we need to do an ordinance but I've thought about it for a while. Of like, it would be great to because there's so much good that's happening there. If so many more people understood, and that we got more demand, I think it's good for optics and good for business.
Well, let me tell you what the worst thing would be that you'd deal with, and that is the first opportunity that came along, one guy had come in and throw down a bunch of money and take it all and then fight you for zoning for the next 2 years so that he had the right to put storage units on there. And that went right against everything we wanted to do. By following the state code under the CDRA, it gave us the opportunity to work that way. And we followed the law. Now, if there's a reason we want to discuss this, and I think maybe we discuss it going forward, because there are other things that I would like to say too, but and I'm not going to even drag through some of that. But the businesses that we have brought in have brought jobs. They have brought some incredible things, and they're working away. They are working away at it right and left. And
but what's to hurt with like more noticing and more advertising that's free? I mean, it just because you say something's for sale doesn't mean that you have to sell to anyone and everyone that is interested.
well,
Where do we post currently?
Again, wherever the notices are required. I can tell you that more people than probably some think know about it. We've had local real estate agents that have sent people our way. The mayor and I have had probably no less than a half a dozen discussions with different businesses that we've talked to. The real estate agents have sent them our way. They know about it.
the one of them even works with one of the owners of the property, and went around a whole bunch of things. And part of the reason was, gosh, we could save 6% right off the bat for these people when they want to bring their business here. That's a big savings, because we were doing it legally with development agreements, and all of a sudden it opened up the doors for some of those guys to say, gosh, I can afford this. So does it hurt to do it? And let me ask you this. Is somebody wanting this kind of a thing for self-serving purposes? Yeah. And you have to evaluate all of that too.
I mean, I've thought about it just before this. That's been something that's on my mind that's kind of bothered me, is I think it would be more beneficial for the city to even, if any of we can email it out to commercial real estate agents. When I talked to the owner of Trailer Parts Wholesale, I told Norm, he had thought that we had all sold out. And I don't think he ever reached out to you, but he told me that his friend was interested. And so I went to the grand opening, and he was like, but you guys are all sold out. And I was like, no, how do you not know this? And I think there's some people might know about the industrial park, but they might have assumptions that maybe it's all sold. They won't know what's the availability of the lots. What it does create is this impression that those who have access to you or Norm are the ones that have the advantage. And I'm not saying that's the case, but that's one of the reasons why like a request for proposal is like mandated in certain circumstances, because we want to make sure that everybody is informed or had the opportunity to be informed. And I just think it would create it would. I don't know if it would really add that much work. You don't have to hire a listing agent, but even just posting on the city page of, hey, these are the lots that are currently available. Reach out to X email if you want.
Well, part of the ordinance that he is proposing does specifically say to use the MLS. So
I'm saying we don't need to do.
I know. Some of what he says does make sense. I get that.
Yeah.
But he's going a lot more than what is required and what we need to do, and that would be actually helpful. Some of the time frames he's putting on here, I don't know where all the ideas came from, so it's kind of odd.
Yeah,
but
Chat GPT
or his lawyer, I don't know. I don't know if we need an ordinance for it.
Yeah,
but yeah, maybe something on the city website saying there's the industrial park and we have something available. I don't know, but
Yeah, even
I
like a
don't think
dedicated
the ordinance,
page.
especially as he's proposed it, is needed.
No. I'm saying that I'm saying kind of the end goal or vision. Maybe it's not the same vision, but I do think that there's a lot of people that would benefit from knowing, and
But
like
you need to know one thing about this. This started 3 years ago, and there was bare ground out there, and
yeah.
you know, what do? Well, in all of those books that say in order to develop this and sell this, you have to invest the millions it takes to build it, to bring the water in, to do the curb gutter, sidewalk, asphalt, lay the pipes in the ground, you know, get this thing ready, hook to the sewer, figure out your whole plan. That was millions. And you go, well, sheesh, we don't have the millions, so what do? You turn it over to a developer? Well, then all of a sudden we're out the whole thing, because that developer would have been saying, yeah, well, I'm going to turn the whole place into storage sheds or something like that. And you go, gosh, we don't get the jobs. And we already had the people begging to do it. It wasn't like, oh, we're going and finding them. And we were keeping abreast of all of those things and filling in the council as we went along. We even voted as a council to even move on, which, okay, let's see if we can do this. And the hardest part to me was to make that sale and say, we're going to reinvest what you buy this for to actually take care of all of this. That's faith on the part of those guys that were bringing their first ones in. The rest of them, they like to see that it's already there and don't have to worry about it. And we did it, and we pulled it off, and we made money, and we're in really good shape. Now, the other thing we have is we have the whole other east side. We haven't even touched yet. And I didn't want to touch that because I thought, you know, that's a future group that could come in and have a vision and make it work. But for right now, I think we've got a good plan. And you know,
I don't think that advertising it is conflicting at all. I think it actually is beneficial to what you're describing is by even just, it could be a page on the website, or it could be a post on the Santaquin City Official, or even an email to the current owners in the industrial park of saying, hey, just so you know, this month these lots are left. If you know anyone, because these are great people to give referrals, because you know the type of owners they are, you know the type of people, you already worked with them. But the fact that even current owners don't know the status of the industrial park or what lots are for sale.
Well, they knew that, or they should have known that. I'm surprised.
Or do they get emails?
Did you talk to Scott, or did you talk to one of the others?
There's two owners. It was one of the owners.
Carter.
I don't even remember his name. I think it's Scott. And so I just I mean, it doesn't hurt. Like, it takes like 5 seconds to just say, hey, we've got lots for sale. It doesn't have to be perfect, but right now I don't think that there's a lot of communication. And so there's a limited opportunity for a lot of people to know about how good of an industrial park is being developed, and to know about everything that really you've led. And so I don't think it's contradictory at all to what's been done or what even the plan is now. It's just advertising it a little bit more. It doesn't mean you need to have a listing agent. It doesn't mean you need to post it to MLS, but just getting it out to residents, getting it out to business owners, even if we took, say, all the business licensees and emailed them and said, hey, we have this. Those might be people, or messaging it out to the Chamber of Commerce, working with them and letting them email it out to all the people in the Chamber of Commerce. It doesn't take that much work. It's honestly, I mean, for some people, maybe it will take a lot of work to use the computer, but for most people, it really could take like 5 to 10 minutes at most to just get it to thousands more people. And it doesn't mean that we commit to giving it to a developer at all. It's just advertising.
Yeah. Well, and we had worked with some real estate agents. So I don't mind if you guys want to say, hey, we need to look at this. Let's look at it. Let's talk about it and see how we want to do it. Right now, we've followed the law and we've done it with an attorney on our side to make sure that we didn't screw up. Yeah. So,
and I'm not saying we didn't follow the law. I'm just saying, I mean, just because we're doing amazing doesn't mean we can't do even better.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. Let's discuss it. Okay. Why don't we discuss it again in our next work session? We are out of time right now, but I think that would be a good thing. And I just saw this afternoon, so
and I'm not necessarily saying I agree with this. I'm agreeing with what I think is the idea of it, of just advertising it more.
That's,
you know what
that's all I think we need at this point right now anyway. So, even some of the wording in there doesn't make sense.
No.
Okay?
Okay.
We've had a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Brian?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Okay, we got 13 minutes.